What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for The Flash Season 4, Episode 19, titled Fury Rogue. And in my trailer breakdown for this episode, I said the way the trailer portrayed the episode, or the synopsis portrayed the episode, it didn't seem like they were really focusing on the grief of Ralph's death, and that Team Flash didn't really care, and other than Barry, who grieved in the last episode, nobody was really grieving his death, and for the most part, that was true for most of Team Flash, except for when Cisco mentioned him one time, but that was it, and Iris and Barry throughout the episode, but everyone else, it didn't seem like they cared that much. Now, the people that did care, like Barry and Iris, that was actually done so well. You see, throughout the episode, Barry is like, at first he has like denial of the fact that, not denial of the fact that Ralph is dead, which is what I have, because I don't think he's dead, but denial of the fact that he's grieving his death, and then throughout the episode you see him grieve more and more and more, and it was actually really great. This is like a really emotional part of the death, even though the death was in the last episode. This part of the death, the grieving of the death, was actually done so well. Most deaths in these shows happen in the season finale, so there's a 5-month gap between then and the next episode, so you never really see characters grieve. But when a death happens in like episode 17 or 18, like how Laura Lance died in season 4, which was stupid, but how Ralph died here, you have a couple episodes for the characters to grieve their death. So it actually works sometimes. It did not work for Arrow in Season 4, but honestly it does work here for The Flash in Season 4, as long as Ralph is coming back, because this episode, the best part about it was definitely the storyline of Barry grieving Ralph, or like at the beginning not grieving him, but then more and more being turned by Citizen Cold to grieve him, and at the end saying that he blamed himself. It was honestly pretty great, and all those scenes between Barry and Cold, or Barry remembering the last episode for how Ralph died, and which was, I think, two flashback scenes. Those were great. Those were really emotional scenes, in my opinion, and it makes for a much better death scene for Ralph, because in the last episode it was pretty emotional, just because the fact that he died was pretty emotional, but there was no like crazy sad music, and none of the characters were like crazy sad or anything. Doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, just because when you think about it more and more, the more I think about it, the more I think if he's actually dead, that would suck, so it makes it more emotional. But this episode actually had that part of it, the part that I mentioned a half a minute ago, where the characters are actually grieving his death and how they're sad. But in this case, it was only Barry and also Iris, but mostly just Barry. But at least for Barry, it was done so well, and it was honestly the best part of the episode. Another great part in this episode, and I mentioned him earlier, was Citizen Cold. This is actually the last episode he's going to appear in the Arrowverse until further notice. By him, I mean Wentworth Miller, the actor who plays Leonard Snart, or Leo Snart, or Citizen Cold, or Captain Cold. Any version of him, he will not appear ever again until further notice, because he said that he was going to leave the Arrowverse like forever, but then later, in a month later, he said he may return if need be, but until further notice, this is the last appearance of him. And as for last goodbyes, this was honestly pretty great. Like his inclusion in this episode was very necessary for the story, as well as very, it was just good. I actually really liked his inclusion. He was a fun character to watch in this episode. I think he's great in small doses. This character, he's great in small doses. In large doses, he's good, but in small doses, he's great. So his appearance in this episode was actually really great, and the inclusion in the storyline, the fact that it actually worked with the storyline, and how because of it, like the main villain of this episode, Siren X, came to the Earth. I thought that it worked really well, and it was cool to see. Also, his moments with Barry were great, like the one where he was telling him that he should grieve Ralph. There were a couple of those, but like throughout the episode, he was really great. His moments with Barry were great, and he was probably he was definitely a great inclusion in the episode, and a great inclusion in the storyline. I thought that he really benefited both the storylines he was in. The main storyline with Siren X and Fallout and Devoe, and the side plot with Barry grieving Ralph. I thought that he really helped that storyline as well, even though it was great. Without him, he definitely helped this, so I thought that his inclusion in this episode was really great. And as for last goodbyes, like I said earlier, it was a great last goodbye, and that last scene where he was talking to the rest of Team Flash, and then he left back to Earth X, it was a great scene. Speaking of characters from Earth X, Siren X debuted in this episode, and for the most part, she had a pretty interesting backstory. Like her backstory was that she worked for the Third Reich and under Black Arrow, and she had an unrequited love for him, and that was really much. That was all of it, one sentence thing. But as for that, it was a pretty interesting backstory, despite the fact that we didn't really see it. We didn't see any flashbacks, which is not a complaint at all. I didn't really want to see any of those flashbacks. It's just that it was a semi-interesting backstory, and she had these cool additional powers of using her sonic waves to hear far, which I thought made sense within the character's powers to an extent, and it was a cool additional power. Hopefully Black Siren, or maybe even Dinah Drake, develops this power throughout the next couple seasons of Arrow, or season, I don't really know. But I thought overall she was a pretty unnecessary addition to the episode, as well as an addition to the Arrowverse. Like, we already have an evil Laura Lance Earth X, or not Earth X, but other Earth doppelganger with who goes by something Siren. She's probably Black Siren. Like, they called her Siren X, but it's probably Black Siren and just Siren X, just to differentiate the two characters. But I thought like she was a pretty unnecessary addition to the Arrowverse and to the storyline in general. All she really did was set back Team Flash from getting any further. Like sure, she did save Team Flash from Devoe, who would have definitely killed them, but they could have just not killed them, but maybe killed them and took Fallout. But I really didn't think she needed to be in the episode, and she was really not needed to appear in the Arrowverse. She wasn't a great addition, and I feel like we'll never see her again in this episode, and that's fine because we already have a very similar character to her on Earth 2, or from Earth 2. So in the last episode, we saw that Harry used the thinking cap with dark matter, and it kind of made him stupid. We saw in the last episode he didn't really know what he was doing for one scene, and we saw what that means in this episode, where he's like losing his brain function and losing everything he's learned in life. And I thought this subplot with Harry and Cisco was for the most part pretty good. There was one scene that was actually really great of Harry admitting why he's so frustrated with battling Devoe because he's really, the only reason he's on this team is to outsmart any of the villains, and he can't outsmart Devoe, which I thought was a pretty great scene. And this whole subplot was good in general, but I didn't really like how the characters were lying to each other. Like, I don't really, not to each other, how Harry was lying to Cisco and Team Flash, because I don't really like that. I don't really like how characters lie to each other in movies and TV shows for absolutely no reason at times. I do get it in this case a little bit, but still, all it served was to stretch out the subplot. So it was a big misunderstanding of Cisco using the thinking cap with like that was like 2 or 3 scenes. Instead, they could just skip right to Harry telling Cisco. But either way, I thought this was a pretty good subplot in general. It's just that one thing that bothered me. There was some great scenes, the one that I mentioned, and I thought it was a pretty good subplot. It's really all there is to it. It was mostly pretty good. So something that this season has been building up throughout the season is Marlize betraying her husband, Clifford, both named Devoe. So it's really weird because one of them I just called Devoe and the other one's also named Devoe. So it's really weird. I should probably just call him Clifford or the Thinker. So the season has been building up to Marlize betraying the Thinker, and we never saw it more so than in this episode. You saw Devoe just being a huge dick to her. I guess I get why he's being such a dick to her, just because he doesn't see he sees emotion right now as distracting. But I mean, Devoe's not this stupid, right? There's no way he's this stupid. He's not stupid. He's supposed to be really smart to think that he can like talk this way to Marlize without her having second thoughts and betraying him. Like, I don't really think he's that stupid, so that wasn't something I really liked about that. But at least it is leading up to Marlize betraying him, which is, in my opinion, like the only way Team Flash can beat him at this point, other than Barry using Flash Time, which is not going to happen because it's just game breaking, it's show breaking at this point. But Marlize betraying him is the only way that Team Flash will win at this point. Maybe she's gonna like emotionally beat him, so that like she's defending Team Flash and Devoe can't do anything to her because he doesn't want to, but maybe he turned off his emotions or anything. I definitely think that near the end of the episode, Devoe might actually kill her just because he's lost all of his emotions. He doesn't really care anymore about anything other than the Enlightenment, which is his big plan in the end. So I think that is how the season will come to a close. Like, not to a close. I think that's how episode 22 will end, with Devoe actually killing Marlize. I'd bet on that, and come back to this video after episode 22 comes out and tell me if I was right. Actually, don't tell me if I was right, because that would be a spoiler, but tell me in the comments of that review that I was right then, because I think that that's gonna how it's gonna go down. But this subplot with Marlize and Devoe was pretty good. It's just that Devoe's kind of acting a little bit out of character. Like, it's not out of character for him to be a dick, but it's pretty out of character for him to be this stupid and think that he can do these things without Marlize going against him or having second thoughts against him. So that was pretty stupid. But in general, I thought this subplot was great. Not great, actually, pretty good. And something I liked about this subplot, and as well as all the other ones, is how they branched out from the main storyline. So you had the main storyline of Team Flash and the Flash escorting Fallout to Argus, but then things branch out of that, like Barry grieving Ralph's death, or not really grieving his death, and then grieving it at the end. And the Devoe subplot, which is branch out because Devoe was going after Fallout, and the Caitlyn subplot, which was also a branch out because she was intertwined with that storyline. And then there was another subplot with Cisco and Harry, which wasn't really a branch out from the main storyline, but all the other ones were, and I thought that was really great and something I really liked about the episode. But in conclusion, I thought this episode was pretty good. It wasn't amazing or anything, but I did like how, even though the main storyline was pretty basic and pretty uninteresting in general, it's just Team Flash escorting Fallout to Argus, which is something they've done something similar before. But the way that they had these subplots branching out of the main storyline, like I mentioned, did really serve it well, and it worked really well. And then there are other things like Citizen Cold being in the episode was great, and his goodbye from the show was done really well. And then the best part of the episode, Barry grieving Ralph's death, or not really grieving his death, and then throughout the episode grieving it more and more and more, that was great. It's just that there are other things that were just good, like Cisco and Harry the Cisco and Harry subplot, Devoe subplot, and the Caitlyn subplot. Those were all just good, not great. And then there's Siren X being in the episode, which was kind of unnecessary, but she was a cool villain, cool one-off villain. If she never appears again, then that's fine. So I'll give this episode an 8.9 out of 10, but let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for better updates on my videos, as well as daily polls on the Arrowverse. Or if you don't have Twitter, definitely click the notification icon next to the subscribe button, because that definitely helps with you being updated for my videos, because YouTube isn't really working. And thanks for watching.